course, the cat jumps in right on time. Ladies and
Uh,
gentlemen, welcome to Meet Your Makers, starring me, Phil Keeling, my guest, Kim Godwin, and my cat, Ripley, who always knows when the camera's on, she can't get enough. That's her thing. Kim, welcome back to the show. It's so good to see you again.
oh yes, it's great to be back. It's been a crazy few months since we last talked,
Yeah,
but it's nice to be back in Japan.
I love it. I love it. I am not in Japan. More's the pity. But it's always you always know that we've got a special guest and we have a special time for the show. I'm just so happy to have you on here. Let's get right into it. You just then you were talking about new projects and that sort of thing. So what's coming down the line most urgently, I suppose.
Most urgently,
Hmm.
uh, well, we just crowdfunded Scion Mythic Shards. So I got to be the developer for that. So I was really excited. It was my first developer project, and working with Hiromi was great. And
Hmm.
then working with the rest of the team was really fun with some people I've worked with frequently before, like Akele. Um, and it was really fun. Definitely, like I didn't write any of the chapters this time. I just wrote the intro and then like the overviews and stuff like that. So seeing that go live on the Kickstarter, it's like, oh, I wrote that.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean, that's got to be a really exciting moment having that happen. Like that's really cool. And this is a big one too. Like this one did really well. This one
Yes.
people been talking about a lot.
Oh, I'm really glad because it's like it's always interesting to see what will happen when you're doing a source book like this, and
Hmm.
uh, it's very similar to the work we did for the They Came From RPG anthology, where we have different genres and reconceptualizing Scion into different points of view is like it opens up so many doors and so many different ways to play a game about gods and divinity, and then finding your place and embracing your fate sort of stuff or changing fate. So it's something that a theme I really enjoy in writing and reading. Characters that are born into this destiny, they say, no, I don't want this, I'm going to make my own path. They end up maybe doing something parallel, but they've made the choices. They decided, I'm not just going to accept that this what I've been told is the only thing I can do is the only thing I'm going to do. I'm going to find my own way. I'm going to do this good thing, but I'm going to do it my way. It's something I really enjoy.
No, that's fantastic. I think what's fascinating with this book for me specifically is that you would think that the idea of living in a world with gods and that kind of thing would be about as much as you can crank it up. You can, adding more to that seems insane, but it's these supplements are really cool, and I'm surprised at how natural some of them sound. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, I would have immediately gone with like the children of gods in a cyberpunk environment or something like
Oh
that. But
yeah.
holy shit, like that's cool. That's really
Oh,
cool.
oh yeah, the with the cyberpunk with divine machines with magical metal. So we could touch on like these cool science fiction sort of concepts, but from the realm of magic fantasy, which can be a little bit more loosey-goosey in how we don't have to tell you why it works. It's magic. Okay, cool. We've written that off. We don't need to logically explain how magic works now.
Right. I think that's great. I think it kind of continues a tradition I've seen with Onyx Path, but with tabletop role playing in general as of late, where it can be as serious or as over the top and silly as you want it to be. That's the real advantage to games like this. You can
Oh
take
yeah.
something like this and make it crazy serious and have your own little personal soap opera with your friends, or you can
Mhm.
have gods in machines fighting over cities, and come on, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's the that aspect of divinity, that legend in a giant mecha, and then as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, you go from like sort of like power armor where it's very crude, and it's not like, okay, it's that rock'em sock'em robot sort of thing, punch
Right.
hit sort of thing. And then you go up to like God tier, where you have that giant mecha launching other mecha out of it, smaller mecha. So it's like a aircraft carrier with mecha, and then you're fighting kaiju. Um, but yeah, that chapter was a lot of fun, and I'm really happy we were able to add Journey to the Wild West. That was something that we were really excited about, because a lot of people for Scion, they're constantly asking for, let's do past history sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
that can be kind of hard from a development point of view, because you're dealing with a lot of really sensitive topics, and it's like, well, that's how it was,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, if we do something like Lost, like we're doing for Lost in Time, we're gonna have to present something where it is like we're already dealing with alternate realities, and you've already uh, made that peace. You know, you suspended your disbelief because we've
Yeah.
presented it. You know, gods are, you know, divines are now machines. You know, you are superheroes. You are like, the world hates you because of some incident, and it's like, that doesn't seem fair. That never happened. Yes, it did. It happened in history. Uh, Quite a number of times. It wasn't right, but it happened.
It happened.
Um, mhm. And it's like, okay, now we're going to space. We're not in space travel yet. So like, so now we can say, okay, so we're going, you're part of like a time travel reality police sort of thing, and now you're going to all these different time periods to deal with the anomalies, to protect it, or to stop some weird stuff from happening. uh, and we'll talk about that more as we get closer to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the most recent book that just came to print, of course, was Trinity Continuum Aether, which was
Yes.
a lot of fun when that was pitched to me. I think that was one of my first Scion, or my first Trinity projects, actually. Uh,
Well, you know, it's great that you bring this up, because me personally, I think Trinity Continuum is probably, of all the base games within Onyx Path, that's probably the one that I have the biggest blind spot for. So
mm,
I'm going to ask this question like I'm asking it for the people in the audience who maybe have never played and don't know what the game is, but just always remember, this is for me more than anything else. This is for my own edification. What's so?
uh,
Tell me about. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me about Trinity Continuum. What does that game entail?
so Trinity Continuum, the base game, is a alternate reality near, you know, now contemporary game, where you have people that are talents, where you're a little bit above average, and you have special abilities, which are more about like, you have some sort of weird luck thing, or that, so you have these abilities that are a little bit closer to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then you would go to Aberrant, where it's a little bit further in the future, and this event where this satellite exploded caused the caused a whole bunch of people to erupt with some sort of magical, or not really magical powers, since since it's a science fiction game,
Mm-hmm.
where it activated some sort of genetic code within them that gave them superpowers, and it manifests differently based on personalities. And a lot of times the eruptions are based off of like some sort of traumatic event,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're dealing with a world now that's dealing with super geniuses and coming up with these techs. So it adds another tier, the novas, to that world. And then you get a little bit further down, and you go to Aeon, where you go into the far further future, where there's space travel and robots. And then in between that is Anima, where you're dealing with a dystopian future. The societies have collapsed. It's Confederated States of America before Aeon, and it also presents a chance to go in online to this weird game where Terra Surge, I believe, where you go in and you're doing an online MMORPG, and you're leveling up your character, and you're dealing with the politics and interacting with reality there. And that's also really fun. And then with Aether, it's a steampunk game with a alternate future, where the Martians, like, world War of the Worlds Martians have landed and they've invaded, and now in humanity, this substance that they call aether was discovered, and contact with it can changes you. And then we go from normal people like talents, we call them squires in that game, to gogs, which are people that use apparatus to harness the power of aether to do wondrous things or sometimes destructive things. And the magogs are people who've who've internalized aether, and uh, there's a lot of negative connotations to it. It's more, if you think of it as with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where he takes the serum. The serum is a device, and when he's Mr. Hyde, and so if you take that Mr. Hyde, and it's like, okay, now he's gone several steps, and now he just exists and has these abilities without the device. Now he, in that side of himself, that destructive side of himself, has taken over him, and the more consumed he gets by that power, the more destructive it gets. But that doesn't mean it can't come like that. A person like that can't come back or can't do good things.
Hmm.
It's just that in that time period, if you were not amongst the standard of the norm, it was, you got shunned, you were bad. So with some of the societies that we introduced and some of the counter societies, we were talking about different. It was interesting because we had to. I had to think of ways to present alternate takes on magogs. So with like the society of what the opposition of monsters,
Hmm.
they're the monster hunters, right? They're led by Wilhelmina Harker um, from Dracula. She's
Hmm.
hunting these people. You know, they're working together to understand these magogs and the more monstrous ones, and curtail how the damage that they're doing. Um, and then you have the three prongs, which is a more of a like a religious cult devoted to Kali, which see magogs as a natural progression, like a spiritual progression. So it's part of the order of things, but they feel like people try to force it, and that's what try to force themselves to reach that state of enlightenment
Hmm.
too early or artificially, and that's what causes the problems. And then you have the blood of Gog, which feel like it's an addiction, a sort of like an addiction. And it's like you've lost control of yourself, so we are who we are. We're and we're gonna try to bring you back and gain control of ourselves so we can get better. And then you have like the Aether Society, which it's like I don't have the book in front of me, where they actually they're like the journalists of the age, right? They're studying what's going on, these events, and you're documenting it. So it's a lot of fun. So there's all kinds of weird. There's some time manipulation stuff in there. There's some reality bending. There's opening aether gates to other worlds or other parts of the world, and so it's steampunk's a lot of fun, and it's
Hmm.
doing all the research to find out some of the more interesting stuff. Um, like I didn't know before I started working on this book that back in the Victorian era, when this is happening, ladies' societies got together and they discuss their latest Egypt exhibition findings.
Hmm.
They've like a lot of bored rich Victorian women funded a lot of these expeditions into Egypt. So I was like, oh my gosh, that is just so cool and so weird. It's like it got changed later on, but I thought it would be funny if this started as like a women's circle doing this sort of thing, and then it kind of got pulled into like this aether stuff, and then it's like, oh yeah, let's get everyone involved. There's a lot we can cover more ground that way. So
Yeah. I mean that's
so
a
it,
great idea for a campaign though. If like you're being funded by this collection, you're not other games you play. You're being led around by a government organization. It's like no, we've got a trio of rich widows who are bored out of their minds and want us to go investigate these things just so they have
mhm.
something interesting to talk about in the salon.
Oh yeah, and uh and for every single society in there we offered like why play these people or how they would mix into if this is the suggesting possible themes, like with the Edison's unwinders. They're the people that are seeing, oh, these people are doing really bad, destructive things with these these aether devices, and when they're spinning and these magogs are out of control. Man, that werewolf guy was just really bad, which was I based some of that on a real case too that happened in France, or actually no, it was
Of,
Spain.
of a werewolf, so like a suspected
Mhm.
werewolf kind of thing.
Yeah, this it was a serial killer. He was attacking people and skinning them, and he claimed to be a werewolf. He was like biting people, and it was crazy. But it's like that's really weird. I'm gonna put that in that chapter, because I kind of when I ended up picking up an extra chapter because it sometimes happens people can't stick on for a project,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asked, hey, you want to take up so many words talking about magogs for this chapter? Just so it's like I went on to like this treatise of all myths are true sort of thing,
Yeah,
which is something I've enjoyed talking about. Um, and then look, because there's like during that time period in the U.S., there was a really bad New England vampire scare going on.
that I've heard of. That one, yeah, that one's
Mhm.
crazy.
So in like the newspapers and stuff, they were talking about like mass grave desecrations and stuff like that. And then of course you have the mort safes, the cages over graveyards. But it was tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tuberculosis outbreak, and nobody knew that's what it was. And we only found that out through forensic investigations when someone fell into an op- an old grave.
Oh my
Two kids were
god.
playing, and actually, my dad used to work for the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, the Office of the Armed Forces Medical Examiner, when he was active duty as a forensic serologist photographer. And his one of the doctors he worked with, the anthropologist, actually did like was on like that episode of Sightings, if you remember that show at
Oh
all.
my god, yes I do.
So
Absolutely.
for the younger folk, Sightings was like an alien supernatural like occurrence show, so talking to eyewitnesses and talk
Mm-hmm.
and the possibilities and experts. I air quote because some we don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, are you UFOologists? And now we have a little bit more things to stand on since the that brief came out,
Yeah.
but from the Senate on UFOs in the Navy. Uh, but uh, but yeah, he actually did the DNA testing on that skeleton to find that out. So in the Army Medical Museum, they actually have the facial reconstruction of the New England vampire, JB.
Oh, that's too cool.
Yeah, so it's like, oh man, this is super cool. It's and that's a lot of what I find fun about writing games like this is the amount of research that I can do. It's not a history book, but it's like there's so many cool hooks and things that it could be hooks
Mm-hmm.
just from um, doing research and what actually happened and putting a different spin on it.
Yeah.
Uh, I just love it, love role playing and writing for that sort of medium of exploring these different things or what ifs.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course the other like big what if was Trinity Continuum Aegis, which goes back to the Greek Dark Ages, where we had a lot of history that just period of time where we don't know what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just came back out. So that was lot of fun with the ambrosia, giving people superpowers so they seem like demigods and gods, but then still keeping this game science fiction versus fantasy, where
Yeah.
there is a scientific explanation kind of in the
Yeah,
secrets
kind
chapter.
of. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I love it. I love that because I think for me, there's so much enjoyment to be had from just reading a role playing game supplement cover to cover. Because it does feel like the best ones, in my opinion, have always felt like alternate history books.
Oh yeah.
I was really, I think I've read more books for example, Vampire: The Dark Ages,
Mm.
and I think I've played in maybe one session of it. And but I own like a quarter of all the books that were released,
Mhm.
and I just adore gobbling up all the information, and it's
Oh
fun.
yeah. I think it was either Paradox or White Wolf at one point had done a study of their fan base to see how many people actually played the game and
Yeah.
how many people just loved reading the lore. And a lot of people, the majority of the group, just read the lore. But it's like, and then of course they put out the novel series,
Yes.
um, and that's always fun too. But yeah, it's just so much fun. There's so many different things, and we pack so many good hooks into these books, and it's great. And with Steam Wars coming out, I'm working on Steam Wars 2.
Okay.
Um, and that presents a whole new alternate reality in about the same little like reality bubble of where Aether didn't happen.
Mm.
Uh, so it's another cool possibility. It's based off of Larry Blumeyer's Steam Wars comic, which is a lot of
Yeah.
fun. It's more like, I think, working man steampunk, but
Yeah.
so we'll be able to talk more about that when we get closer. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. The
That's
comic's really
fantastic.
good. You can get it on Amazon or your favorite bookseller. But yeah, just lots of cool possibilities with Trinity Continuum. And if you play the game and you run it and you want to do it as a straight timeline, you can. Or if there's some event you don't like, you just don't do it.
Yeah. Just don't do it. That's a question that I'm always amazed at how frequently it comes up with players. They're like, "Well, I don't care if it's don't do it, man. That's the best part about this stuff. You can include as much or as little of it as you want. Not going to hurt anybody's feelings." And for anybody who is watching, who is interested, I just popped the link for Drive Through RPG for Trinity Continuum Aether into the chat, so check it out. Now, when you talked about doing a lot of research with this book,
Mhm.
but when you're talking about steampunk, I know it's Victorian, but obviously it's also kind of fictionalized. Where do you even begin when it comes to doing research for this sort of thing?
I usually just start by checking like I Google for, so I have like a time period. It's like, okay, what were the years this encompassed? Okay, let's look at different regions of the world, and what does this encompass? Where do we go from here? Um, and then I just find something that jumps out at me,
Mm-hmm.
like for one of the concepts for like the the three prongs. I found I was looking up like temples to Kali, and I came across this one article that was talking about this one abandoned temple that nobody goes to, and it's kind of got like a bad feeling about it, and people have a story about there was a site of mass slaughter. So this temple was built on top of another temple to enshrine something evil and to
Oh
keep it sealed
man,
away. And I was like, I totally need to use that.
yes,
That is
100%.
so cool. And then like if it's something like I reached out to some Hindi writers
Mm-hmm.
in another writing group. It's like, hey, what's some interesting things what things should I be aware of? I want to use Kali as a I'm going to make a fictional cult of Kali and focus on the three aspects of her.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into this discussion, and there was an argument between them. And then I spent so much time researching like the proper area names, because there's different groups, different regionality names for that
Sure.
time period. And no, the cities have different names, different spellings at the time too. And so that was really a cool thing. Just so I kind of just I so really the short answer is I Google, and then I like follow breadcrumbs, and then I kind of just run around in circles until I get to where I need to go. Um,
Eventually, that rabbit hole, it's just gravity taking control. You're not digging anymore.
and then I'm on YouTube for 20 hours, and then it's like, oh, I need to stop researching and get this on paper,
Yeah.
otherwise I'm never gonna stop researching.
The research can be the funnest part because you're like, yes,
Hmm.
I read 3 books cover to cover. I'm researching. It's very important that I know this stuff.
Hmm. Someone is asking in the chat about Curseborne.
Yeah, this one seems like a. I know this is a game that's on everybody's lips right now, and we want to keep a lot of it under wraps. But this seems like a safe enough question. What do you think?
So, so two of the antagonists which have been previewed are ones that I had a hand in creating. So
Oh.
the Red Riding Hood is one of my the Red Riding Hood and the Champagne Room are some of my favorites that because you I can talk about them because they post some stuff about them. Um, and with the Red Riding Hood, it was the idea of someone that had survived an attack
Mhm.
and through that contact kind of leached off some of the powers of the accursed that attack them, and then being so consumed by that they just kind of keep hunting and keep hunting and keep hunting. So the hunters have turned a prey into a predator, and I thought that would be a very compelling sort of antagonist, um, and different levels. And then because you always have those urban myths about the hitchhiker, right?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
someone's walking down a road and then something happens, or in somehow some way that or someone gets murdered and then they get picked up and then somehow they avenge their death that way. It's like, okay, that's a really cool urban legend to dig in on. um it's really hard to pick a favorite family. The hungrier are great, are cool because you have all levels of that, and then the primals are also really fun because like shapeshifters are just good fun all around, and there's
Oh
just
yeah.
a lot to do with that. Oh, someone since I heard said Curseburn, huh? but uh, but yeah, it Curseburn was a lot of fun to work on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it turns out in the end, and when we do the Kickstarter in October.
I think we're all
Uh,
really hyped about that one in particular. That one, I haven't since the con this past what was it, a month ago.
mm.
I haven't seen the hype so high in a long time. Like people are very excited about that one.
Oh yeah, and the media campaign going up to it is very unique for an Onyx Path game, and it's not really involved all the little teasers and stuff, and it's just like it was just a lot of fun to watch and seeing people spin around, and then Curse Boy, and then the blogs and everyone trying to put the pieces together. So uh, it was just a lot of fun.
Why do you think it is that people? What is it about this particular game that has gotten people so excited? What do you think that is?
There, I think there's a desire for more urban fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
where you can tell different personal horror games, and then there's a desire to cross splat. So I don't want one supernatural type in my game. I want all of them,
Yes.
uh, and
Yes.
then I want all of them in one book where they're balanced.
Yep.
I want to know what the base level, because that happens in every time I've done a werewolf game. There's always someone that wants to play a Basset, or there's always someone that wants to play a a mage kinfolk.
Mm-hmm.
There's always someone that wants to do something else. I want to play a vampire somehow,
Right.
some way in this game. Like that, even in my one mage game, one of our players got embraced. So now we're dealing, and then then we were dealing with Macaulay and all the other stuff going on too. So there's like the storytelling possibilities really open up when you start putting everybody in the same world together, and they're not always antagonistic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but for a game like Hunter, where your monsters are like legit, you're dealing with normal people fighting mon- horrible monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's just normal people dealing with delirium, or like, oh my god, you know that 12-foot monster. It's like, when you're normal, you're a cool person, but like 12 feet tall. You know how 12 feet tall is? Like the truck clearance on a bridge.
Yeah.
That's a monster looking down at you, and it doesn't matter how cool they are.
They're They're 12 feet tall. They're 12 feet tall. Yeah. uh, I got another question. Can you tell me about Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition? What's your experience with writing for that game?
It's there's so the only book I worked on was lore for the stretch goal book for Lore of the Traditions, which was the Forgotten Ones and Forbidden Orders. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
craft book. So a lot of that was trying to balance the actual cultural practices, and then fiction, and then trying not to gamify certain things that are really really sensitive. Um, when like uh really back way back in the day, for some of them some gender roles were very defined, and there was also really big caste systems. So like in some cultures, men and women did not eat together. It was like forbidden, or only men could eat this and women could only eat this. And that's not really something you really want to gamify. That's not a lot of fun. That's not really a mechanic
Mm-hmm.
you do. So it's a lot of fun. It's doing a lot of research, and then it's like trying to like you know cross thread that delicate balance of being it's this is in because in the end it's not a history book, it's not a textbook, it is a game. So you want to
Yes.
create concepts that people can engage with and understand, and you it's like, hey, this is a really cool culture, maybe I want to learn more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I want to talk to find people that and talk to them about it. So it gets a conversation going, and then you have that representation. I know when I was younger, I really wanted to be interact with more Chinese media, and it just didn't exist outside of kung fu movies,
Right.
really badly dubbed kung fu movies, or really cartoonish depictions through anime. And it's like, oh, I don't have any other way to access Japanese culture. And
Right.
now with the internet as it is, it's so much more. The other question they have is, with harsh criticisms of your writing, if it's not everyone will love what I like or love what I write, uh, you know, and it just you want people to love your work, but in the end, the person I have to make happy besides me is my developers. However many they are, those are the people I have to make happy because they're the ones paying me. And that's kind of like a mercenary thing to say, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I want to put out the best product I have that I love. I love doing the research. I love writing it. I love playing these games. But if I'm sorry if you don't like it. It may not be your cup of tea, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to like the same things, and I hope you like something else in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's only one part, or like one part, one sentence. And sometimes we make mistakes, um, or we didn't know there was a resource there that we could have used to make it better. Um, but you have to not take it personally,
Yeah.
uh, even when sometimes it comes across as a personal attack. But we usually tell, as a developer, we tell our freelancers, hey, you don't have to interact with the fan base unless you really want to, because sometimes it really hurts, because you
Yeah.
get really angry and you lash out, and it's like, oh, and some people aren't always in the mood to deal with that, and it's like you have to consume that those social interactions as much as you can handle it for your mental health. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to be reasonable about it, because if you spend a lot of time and effort and months going over something over and over again, and you're like, oh man, I'm so excited, I can't wait for people to talk about my chapter,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't talk about it,
Yeah.
or they do not, or the only time they talk about it is to tear it apart, it hurts.
Yeah.
It really hurts. It's like, oh man, I did so much good work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, we have to be mindful too, because when we express frustrations or something, it might leaves a lasting impression that we may not want to do.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice for creative endeavors in general. Where you're putting something out there and getting what you want. For example, a million eyes on your work could also be the thing that drives you deep into a shell somewhere so that you don't have to deal with all that. Because the more people are
Mhm.
interested, the more criticism you could run up against and everything like that. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's really good advice. Being able to try and not take it personally. It's
Oh
you're
yeah.
not always going to succeed.
Oh yeah, and we always try to offer people the opportunities to get out and do things like these do interviews or talk to other people, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I, I guess the other question is my top three ages historical figures. I love Helen because I wrote her in there. That was fun because um, it was like looking at the story of Helen of Troy and then like the history of it where she's actually like a Spartan princess and she might have actually helped like get the Trojans into the city with and all of that was like, oh wow, that's really cool. She makes more like a compelling figure for that.
Absolutely.
Um, and I forget who else put into it. It's been so long. It's been so long, and it's been a rough past 2 months. Uh, I've been on patrol, so I had 8 port calls in 2 months.
Ooh.
So during for the Mythic Shards campaign, because I was in the Southeast Asian countries, I was going to different temples and doing video walkthroughs and posting up on my Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
my TikTok. It's just like, hey, this is really cool. It's really cool to experience these things, to see the different temples, and there's different stories for every single one, and different regions have different variations of the same mythos,
Mm-hmm.
and then the native religions, and then religious beliefs, and then like the modern beliefs. So that was really cool. Um, where in the world am I? So now, I um, I'm back in Japan. We just got back from Palau, so Micronesian nation. And I was like, oh man, I really wish I had gone here when I was working on the Kahu. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Um, I do
there's
understand. You get a lot of
a lot of
questions.
mage questions about mage. Um, yeah, I wrote the Kaho. I can't talk more about it because we haven't previewed more of it, unfortunately. But yeah, I rewrote them. I talked to my Ohana back in on Oahu, and was talking to them, and then my friend gave me his Hawaiian culture course documents
Oh, that's
to work
awesome.
with, and we were having a conversation with, and then my friend was at a shop, and then the customer came in, and this 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 older gentleman, we call them uncles, was just like, oh, and he's like like that anthropology major, for like a Hawaiian anthropology major, and I think his name translated from Hawaiian into God's eyes, or something. And it's
Oh,
like,
cool.
hey, he gave me his number. He's moving right now, but he says just to give him a uncle said just give him a call.
Nice.
Talks, and he'd love to talk to you, and it's like, thank you, but that's really strange.
That's a yeah. That's like thank you. Yes. Okay.
Hey uncle, you talked to my cousin, he said. But that's the feeling when you're on the islands, though. It's a really
Mm-hmm.
cool tight knit community, and they're usually really welcoming. So on Palau, we were walking around. It's a small that the island's actually is only about maybe 8 miles wide.
Wow.
Um, and people were seeing us walk in, and they were like, you need a ride. Like the ATM ran out of money, and this lady did not know us for anything, and she was like, oh, this ATM's out of money. There's another one over the bridge. I got to go there now and come back, so I can take you if you want. And as well as there another one, and it's like, oh yeah, there's one over there, but it charges this much, but this one's better. I can take you and just come back. It's no problem. And it's like, oh, thank you so much, but we're good. We'll
We're
just go over.
we're very very good at yeah. I
Mm,
know it's such a shame, but we are at a point where just like it's that level of kindness you can't help but
mm,
go. Like you can't. It's not even that you can't trust it so much as it just kind of throws you
Oh,
a little bit.
oh yeah, and then like compared to walking down the streets of Malaysia, and the taxi drivers will be like, "Hey, hey, sister, sister, hey, brother, brother, taxi, taxi," and it's like, and it's taxi rates are predatory, man.
Yeah.
Like in like Manila, it was super predatory. We were told to use like the Grab app, which is like Uber, to do
Yeah.
that. So the rates are fixed, so you're not going to
Okay.
get price gouged. Like one of our groups got like price gouged because they charged them like $300 per person.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
to get back to the ship when the fare was like it's only $30. What the
That's insane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's like it's being open-minded and just being aware of cultural differences, price differences, and then like going to some place like Singapore, which is really nice. It's really really safe, but because it's really really safe, there's a lot of rules, and if you break
Yeah.
those rules, you will suffer the consequences. And certain things which are normal in like American culture were taking a woman by the arm and taking her to guiding her to the dance floor, or putting a hand on someone's shoulder that might be of the opposite gender. That's
Hmm.
called offend, or like talking to them when they don't want you to talk to them. It's called offending the modesty of a woman. They can arrest you for it,
Wow.
arrest you and fine you, and
Holy
depending on how
cow.
serious it is, you can be yeah put put in jail. So
Oh my
it's something you
gosh.
have to, yeah.
See,
So
it's stuff like this that when you're writing about this many cultures and that sort of thing, it pays to go the extra mile to know this stuff.
oh yeah, and if I had lots of money, I would, and just getting to travel around the world and just write about these cultures, and that to like immerse yourself and then actually like be a part of it
Hmm.
is is so cool. So I've had the joy of getting to go to some of these locations that I've heavily researched for games I had. When I went to Milan, it was like, oh, it's like I remember this place. I went to San Antonio. It's like, oh, didn't I'm pretty sure we fought like um a demon over here, over here in this
I
one
love
game.
that. I love
Um,
that.
and it's like with technology as it is now, it's so much better than it was when the internet came out. So going into Google Maps and going to Street View and getting to walk around the streets and seeing where things are, and then it's like, what's this thing? And it's like, hey, and then Googling it and then getting this cool backstory, or
Hmm.
going onto Reddit where people are actually talking about their experiences about stuff is really really different.
I mean, an experience is different from a vacation too. You know,
Mhm.
it's like I think it was it wasn't the Onion, but it was one of those sites, and I saw an article the other day that's a woman says, "I could really see myself living here," says woman vacationing in the most expensive part of a certain country. You know.
Oh yeah, I love Singapore, and we got to be there for another week, and my wallet is upset.
Yeah, I believe that. I
Ooh, it's
believe that.
expensive, but like we stayed in a capsule hotel,
Hmm.
so like the Galaxy Pods, which are like a space pod themed galaxy, but it's a hostel still. It's still a hostel. The pods are on top of other pods in like this big
Right.
big room, and there's a shared bathroom down the hall. It's also a wet shower, so you can shower in there. But it's like $30 a night. Or if you
Nice.
get the bigger queen size one, which is supposed to be for two people, it's like $50. And then like so it's like, or like $70 for even nicer hostel right by the mosque on Arab Street. So it's different options, right? For like looking around, it's like we were able to save a little bit of money. So seeing what $50 got us in each country, and then like for Palau, because it's a tourist area and it's also a lot more remote, things are a lot more expensive. We basically just a bunch of us got together and rented a house from Airbnb.
Mm.
So like the nine of us basically had our own hostel. Hostel for a few days.
That's not bad at all. We got one more, and here's another up and comer that's been doing a lot of been tripping a lot of tongues lately. What's your favorite thing about At the Gates?
Oh man, are you looking at my website or
I was
something?
about to say, I think
Just
they're
going down my
just
list.
pulling down your CV at this point. Like, what
Oh
the hell?
wow.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I have a lot of stuff I've worked. It's crazy. It doesn't feel it. It's a lot when I look, like go down. It's like how oh shit I've done like 15 books now. What the hell? Uh, At the Gates is a lot of fun. The tone of it is after working on World Below. Um, it's the mood and the vibe is completely different, and we've definitely fully embraced the idea of like different animal classes, not animal classes, but animal themed peoples, and then
Mm-hmm.
how we did the class system, the professions, was a lot different than uh, in at the gates was a lot different than how we would do it for like they came from or
Mm-hmm.
so trying to come up with the packages and then for the gifts, but it kind of I think it helps streamline some of the choice paralysis that comes with character creation.
Sure.
Because when I was on the ship, I ran everybody in my work center through character creation
Oh boy.
for World Below. So I had my manuscript, I printed it out, and then it was like, okay, we're gonna go through this. What do you want to do? It's like, well, I want to know what my options are. It's like, okay, well, you really should look at the thesis, synthesis, and sorceries and figure out what you want, and then choose everything else because that's going to help you allocate your points for your attributes and your skills. And you're like, what? So I sat down with all 10 of these players individually over the course of like 4 days to help them create a character. So I spent about like 2-3 hours with each person to do it, and without the gates, it helps to remove that sort of thing because it's like, okay, I want this heritage, and I'm going to pick this one or you have two choices, this one or this one, and this one gives me these things, and I just get them
Mm-hmm.
versus having to pick between them.
Yeah.
And that helps it. And it's like, okay, what profession do I want? Okay, I want this. Okay, what equipment do I get? This package or this package?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that so I think that really is a little bit refreshing. Takes away some of that like, oh my god, and it saves my brain because with World Below I had something like 255 uh, unique powers that I came
Wow.
up with because that was my word count. I had just nothing because when with Leith we had decided with those sections who was going to take what, and I said okay because he was going to do sorceries, and it's like okay we have so many words. I'll focus on synthesis and thesis, and I'll take this many words of sorceries, and then so Leith started doing that, and then Leith unfortunately passed away
Mm-hmm.
before we finished the book. So Travis came in and finished it for him. So he did a lot of really good work on it too. Um, and that just with that split, and when I got him up to speed with what I knew and what I had to help out as much as I could.
Yeah.
But trying to come up with unique powers that you're not using anywhere else that are unique to the game or that have utility past the first dot. Like, okay, once I level up, I won't need this anymore. So
Right.
it's like something that's going to be useful all the time because if you only have that resource to buy it at that time than any other time, especially in a survival game, it's like, okay, what's going to be useful? And then trying to give people different flavors of the same sort of thing. So it's like, well, I don't, if I pick this class, I pick this profession, then I won't have this way of defending myself, or I won't have a weapon, or I won't have a cool thing. But trying to keep it unique is the challenge with that sort of thing. But the streamlining's fun. The lore for all of it's really fun. At the Gates was especially the more hopeful tone of okay, we're going to save the world, and we're dealing with like a major natural disaster
Yeah.
caused by like man-made man-made means, and then it's like, okay, how can we harness this disaster for our benefit to like wage war? So it's like a resource battle.
Hmm.
It's like a nuclear arms race
Yeah.
with daemons. So that was a lot of fun, and then being able to summon the daemons and do the JRPG thing is a lot of fun too. I just love the tone of those games. They're just a lot of fun to play.
I totally agree. That the tone makes such a huge difference,
Hmm.
especially compared to some other games that have recently been coming out. It makes a big difference. Like the World Below, for example, you
Hmm.
couldn't get two more different games when it comes to
Hmm.
at least just the overall attitude of them.
Hmm.
But we have that and Curseborne both have Ashcan editions, and I've put the links in the chat for anyone who's interested. For anyone who is in the know, the full books have not yet been released, but these Ashcan editions, they are $4.99 and they contain, what is it, like 50 pages, 70 pages, something like that.
Hmm.
It's just the basic information, what you
Hmm.
need to get started.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like World Below has one too, uh,
Yes.
but they've crowdfunded. So I don't know if you can go back in when we go to pre-order.
Hmm.
If you pre-order the book, if when it's open for World Below or at the gates, you can get the full unedited the manuscript
Yeah.
before the finalized PDF comes out, and then you'll get the finalized PDF when it's done. So that's an option too if you're really interested from the Ashcan editions.
Absolutely. Well, we've got only a little bit of time left, but I do want to end it then on this question. I understand that we have an anniversary that we're celebrating here. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Kim?
Oh yeah, a year ago, Trinity Continuum Assassins Rat in a Burning Cage came out, and that was my first solo jumpstart like adventure. So that was a really fun scenario. It was pulled a lot of inspiration from the old 1970s film Sorcerer, which was a very dark crime sort of film. So it was really gritty. So it was really fun to have this sort of race against the clock to assassins going to this assassin retirement village to find out what happened to their target and then extract him before the hurricane stranded them in with amongst a lot of enemies with no other escape.
Yeah, I love it. That's so much fun.
Yeah, and it was also really fun to create an assassin's mission where they didn't have to actually kill anyone.
Right.
It's just offering another way to play the game.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a lot of, especially for a jump start. That's really interesting. It's just right out of the gate showing you this can be more than just polish up your sniper rifle and collect your target. There's
Mm.
more to it than that. And I think that's fantastic. And we have put that in the chat as well. If anyone's interested in a jump start for this game, celebrate the anniversary. Kim, thank you so much for being on the show again. It's always
Yeah, thanks for
excellent to
having me
have you
again.
on. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
You can find me at Kim Godwin 18 on the Bird app as well as Instagram. I am Studio H&H on Twitch and TikTok. You can find me at my website, KimberlyGodwin.com, which I have my full CV, which someone seems to already have.
They printed it
But
out, plaster the walls with it. I love it. Uh,
yeah,
my name is Phil Keeling. I have been your host. You can find me on Blue Sky as Phil Makes Monsters and on the Bird site as He Makes Monsters. Come check me out, and you can find my podcast, Pixel Lit, the best podcast about video game novelizations because it is the only podcast about video game novelizations. Come check that out. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for joining us, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.